Vance is leading the Republican primary with 44% betting odds to win the 2028 Republican nomination for President of the United States. On the Democrat side, Gavin Newsom is at an 18% odds now to win the Democratic nomination in 2028. It started to fall right after the fires began in LA, and he was fighting a battle for a little bit with Shapiro, which is the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, and after the podcast came back, he was able to kind of pick up a lead, and now he's expanded his lead quite massively into almost 20% odds to win the nomination, with Stephen A. Smith down now at 4%, with even Kamala Harris just at 5% in the betting markets as of right now. And so we're going to test a hypothetical matchup between JD Vance and Gavin Newsom for the 2028 presidential election. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. Looking at the state of the race, JD Vance is a pretty popular incumbent vice president, as you know, the contrary of what some people will make you believe. He's actually far more popular than people lead on. He's probably at about a 49-50%-ish approval rating. Gavin Newsom, on the other hand, has a national favorable of like 28, 29%, 30%. He's in the gutter. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to get 29% of the national popular vote. I think he'd probably recover a lot of those, sort of loose end voters, but I don't think it'd be enough. I think the popular vote would probably be something like 51 to 47. In the popular vote, Vance would probably win the national popular vote by like 4 points in this hypothetical, and it would just be a landslide election for the incumbent vice president. Looking at the state of the race, starting out with the state of Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas. I mean, all of these are practically in the safe column, with North Dakota actually kind of maxing out. You can see like it is a 37-point win there. It was a 36-point win in 2024. You see South Dakota is a 35-point win in the Republican column for JD Vance, and we see Nebraska is a 25-point win. So the state shifts 5 points to the right in this hypothetical. We see Kansas, Oklahoma are all in the safe column as of right now. Kansas had 19 points for JD Vance. Oklahoma 39-point victory for JD. So that is an improvement from Trump's performance there. Wyoming is an improvement. Montana is also an improvement of a couple points. Like pretty much all these states end up shifting right to an extent. Idaho and North Dakota not as much, and Utah does shift left by 2. It is a very left trending state, and so even if Vance does very well in the popular vote, it would be very hard to get the same margin of victory in the state of Utah. Looking at the state of Texas, it is in the Republican column over 12 points. It is the same margin of victory as it was in 2024. So you do see kind of a cap here. If voter registration trends prove otherwise, you'll see the state kind of move to the right here. But as of right now, it's actually staying right about at the same margin it did in 2024. Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Ohio, South Carolina, Florida, and Alaska, as well as Maine's 2nd Congressional District, are all in the safe Republican column, with Iowa at a 17-point win for Vance, Ohio at an almost 19 points. So these would be decent shifts to the right from 2024 even, and Florida ends up being about a 16-point win for Vance, with South Carolina being a 21-point win. It was a 18-point win in the last election. So you would see some movement in the Republican direction in the red states, especially like in Kentucky, Tennessee, there'd be a small shift, Alabama, there's a decent shift, Mississippi, Arkansas to an extent. So you're clearly getting these shifts in these states, in the red states at least. You do have a shift to the right in the red states, and then you also get them in some of the swing states and in all over the blue states. Pretty much all the states move right except for Utah, I believe. That is the only one that doesn't end up budging into the Republican column, and New Hampshire barely even moves to the right in this matchup. But when you look at the safe states, California and Washington, I mean, Washington's still over 12, but it does shift to the right by 3 points in this election. Vance does better with college whites, and so that's why you're kind of getting that. California, it narrows up barely from 2024, but not by a lot. It's like a 0.4 percentage point movement into the Republican column there. The state of Hawaii ends up being way closer at just 17 points for Gavin Newsom. That is a 6-point shift to the right from the last election, and it did shift about 6 points in the last cycle, so that wouldn't be a completely unrealistic movement in the Republican column. Actually, that wouldn't be impossible to see the state shift like that. We see, for example, in Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, those states are still in the safe column for the Democrat, and Maine's 1st Congressional District is also in that safe column at 16 points. So the state has completely terraformed into practically a swing state from the last cycle, as you can see here. The state is becoming less educated, and so because of that and the shift in politics, and so it's definitely going to be a little bit more demographically favorable for Republicans in 2028. However, depending on the favorable ratings of certain candidates, you may get Maine still being a pretty easy win for the Democrats here. Looking at, for example, now looking at the likely Republican states, we see the state of Arizona at 6.3% for Vance. Very small movement to the right. Maricopa probably shifts left by a bit, but then you have some of the other counties probably shift right. Nevada is an 8-point win. This would be a 5-point shift from the last election. Clark County would most likely flip on this map, while, Gavin probably holds in Washoe a bit. It still moves right, but he holds his ground. So that's that. North Carolina being also at about 8 points, or actually it's a 9-point win in this one. That's huge considering Trump only wins it by 3 points in the last one. I think Vance improving with black voters and college whites is definitely going to help him out in the state of North Carolina. I also think the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania all over 6-point wins. I mean, they were all under 2 points last time, but I think with Vance on the ballot, he is a lot more of a Rust Belt type candidate, and also as well, he's improving with every demographic. He does way better with white college voters, and so that is going to shift these states massively into that Republican column as of right now. So those are the likely states. Oregon is in the likely column at just about 11 points. It did vote for Harris by 14, but I think Vance would probably improve in some rural areas, maybe some suburban areas, given the white college shift to the right. So that's definitely something. Colorado ends up being significantly closer in this environment. Just a 9-point win, 8.5-point win. Illinois 10 points. It basically maxes out in its shift to the right. 10.9 for Harris in 2024. It budges barely to the right this time around. Doesn't really move that much from 2024. So you can kind of say that maybe it's maxed out in the state of Illinois there. Connecticut, for example, Rhode Island and Delaware are all likely margins of victory here. You can see Delaware is a 10.4 percentage point win. It was a 14.7 victory there. 14.5 in Connecticut. It's a 3-point shift. And Rhode Island is just a 9-point win when it was D plus 14 last time. So that's a 5-point shift in Rhode Island. So really, really interesting stuff to see. Massachusetts doesn't really shift right much. Vermont, kind of does, but not too much. New York ends up dropping at just 9 points. So there is a 3-point shift to the right in the state of New York. So that is very, very fascinating to see the state shift that much. And then now we come into swing state territory with Georgia at 5 points. My new lean margin is 2 to 6 points as the lean margin. And so you do see Georgia at just 5 points for Vance, and it is in the lean column with New Mexico in the lean column for Vance. I don't think he wins the Hispanic vote, and so because of that, New Mexico simply doesn't push over the edge as much. And you do see it is about a 3-point win for Gavin Newsom. The Albuquerque area does have a lot of new transplants and white liberal college voters. And so the more time goes on, the more naturally liberal the state gets. But Republican registration there is looking pretty good. I just don't think it may be ready to flip yet. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see when the time comes. Virginia is also a state that is fairly competitive here. It is about a 2.2 percentage point win for Gavin Newsom. Very, very competitive. You know, about 3 points closer, almost 4 points closer than what it was back in the final election in 2024. So definitely really interesting movements. And New Jersey is practically in swing state territory. It's very close, a 2.6 percentage point win in the next presidential election as of right now. Very, very close margin in the state. And with New Hampshire barely moving to the right, just a 2.4 percentage point win. The state has a lot of Boston transplants in the southern area, and the state is naturally becoming more liberal, more college educated. And so because of that, the state is naturally moving to the left, and you see it barely moves. It's also a very anti-incumbent state, so that's why that is the case, although it still shifts to the right very narrowly from the last cycle. Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, a 2.5 point win for the Democrat there, for Gavin Newsom. So very interesting to see that there as well. And the final 2 states, Minnesota and Maine at large, are barely in the Democrat column here. In Minnesota, just 0.8% in Minnesota. Minnesota is a very tight state, with Maine being the closest state on the map. Believe it or not, a 0.1 percentage point win for Gavin. It is really close. It could barely end up flipping in Vance's direction, more than likely. That is like pure toss-up category. But as of right now, this is what the electoral map is looking like, with Vance at 312 to 226, but with 2 potential flips on the table. If he were to flip Minnesota and Maine at large, he ends up actually getting 324 electoral college votes in the 2028 presidential election. And so if you guys did enjoy this quick analysis and video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.